Live your life, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Conspiracy Farm, where we don't start the conspiracies, we just add the water. And now, your host of the most state-of-the-art, most informed podcast on the interweb, I present to you Pat Miletich and Jeffrey Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for war?
Yeah, rear naked choke of Cocker Spaniel, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Change the neighborhood up.
Conspiracy Farm. Go. Check it out.
I'm doing good. Let's get rolling, brother.
All right. Well, today we have a returning guest, Boone Cutler, retired sergeant in the U.S. Army. He has co-written a book with his co-author, General Michael Flynn. You've met Boone before in another episode, but General Michael Flynn here will break down a little bit about him. He's retired Army general with over 33 years of service in the United States military and a chairman of America's Future, a 501c3 nonprofit. His military career culminated as a director of defense intelligence at the DIA and as the nation's highest serving military intelligence officer. After retiring from the Army in 2014 as a private citizen, General Flynn went on to serve in a variety of businesses and educational and nonprofit roles to include supporting veterans organizations around the country, something he continues to do to this day. His public service included a selection and service as a foreign policy advisor to several Republican U.S. presidential candidates, 2016, and subsequent appointment and service as the national security advisor to the 45th president of the United States of America. General Flynn is a best-selling author, holds 3 master's degrees, and a recipient of numerous military and intelligence and law enforcement awards. He is married with 2 sons and has several grandchildren. Gentlemen, welcome to the show this morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Morning.
Great, Jeffrey. Thanks. I'm going to have to join the Moose Lodge obituary.
Well, Boone was so gracious to mention, when he was on, you guys have written a book called A Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generational Warfare. Pat, for so many years, have been talking about, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, certain other terms, asymmetrical warfare, nonlinear warfare, and you guys are talking about fifth generation warfare, which kind of has a connotation that there were 4 other stages of warfare before that. If you guys don't mind, kind of break that down. What were the previous 4 stages that has led up to our 5th generation? Either one of you guys.
Sir, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, why don't you jump in, Boone?
I'll hit the low-hanging fruit for us. There's a little bit of discussion about, which one, where does first start and end, second end, beginning and end in between the stages. There's a little bit of a, people are, they say it's different things, but in the general context, the bottom line is you're going to see first generation warfare, pre-gunpowder. That's when people were just slugging it out with swords and knives and just beating each other to hell, right there on the battlefield. And then we got second generation. Now we're going into post gunpowder. Now people are actually shooting each other. They're jumping into trenches. They're actually learning formations and things of that nature. We get generation warfare. Now we're talking about adding some fuel to the fire, some gasoline. We're talking about flying objects. We're talking about tanks. We're talking about things like the machine gun. Then we get into 4th generation warfare. Now we're talking nuclear war. Now we're talking more stuff, just bigger. 4th generation. We're also talking about state, non-state actors doing things like terrorism, things like that. Then we get into 5th generation of war. And just like we have generations of people, like we've got boomers, we've got millennials, we've got Gen Xers, Gen Zers. Well, that's what all these generations kind of fall into from beginning. Now we're kind of in the newest stage, that newest era. And that's called the 5th generation of warfare, which is really the war of narratives and perception. It's what people think is happening, but maybe not be happening. It's very hybrid. There's an element of economic warfare. There's elements of political warfare. There's elements of psychological operations throughout the whole thing. So it's very complex, and it really focuses on the 5th generation warfare. It focuses on the citizenry. It's how to manipulate a citizenry to change the context, to change the lay of the land inside of a country. So there's regulation that happens.
Let me just jump in too. So all that Jeffrey and Patrick that's all described as, Boone was perfect in the defining of the generations. All that's described in chapter 1 of the 5GW guide. The one thing I would add is that on 5th generation warfare, it's really the targeting of civilized society and the ideologies that are inside of that society. And so it's basically, and it's imposing and influencing what we basically believe. And for those that are fighting inside of this, all part of this right now. We're all the world is part of this sort of ideological. It's much different, where the previous 4 generations were really all about geography, and taking over one's geography. This one is about psychology, and it's about ideology, about changing the ideology and the idea of what you thought you were as a citizen, particularly in a civilized society, as the United States of America still is.
And the different components, the different weapons being used now, the silent weapons for silent wars, and something that I started recognizing, 2 years ago with the chemicals on our lawns. Even I stopped putting chemicals on my lawn. I recognized that these were very detrimental and harmful to mankind. The agriculture industry, it's just poisoning everyone, and that's a form of chemical. That's the chemical warfare that's taking place. And then the biological version. I ask people who are very, very educated, why do bioweapons labs exist? And they can't figure out, when was the last bio war we had, is what I ask them. Yeah. And it starts to dawn on them, and you can see the fear in their eyes when they start to realize that these bioweapons have been targeting us for at least 4 decades.
Yeah, bioweapons have been around a long time. And a couple of things, I guess, to sort of step back. Chemical warfare. We are under a massive chemical attack. I mean, we're in the middle of a chemical war from China, as an example, and that's in the version of fentanyl. So America is the number one fentanyl consumer in the world. I mean, it's like 90% of the fentanyl that actually is produced by China comes into the United States, and they do it, without remorse. They do it without. I mean, we sort of have tied the hands of our law enforcement professionals that are out there. And the whole defunding the police. So the phrase defund the police is part of 5th generation warfare, and that is to basically get rid of and eliminate. The intention is to eliminate local policing. We're the only country in the world that still has local policing. Every other country on the planet, to include the United Kingdom, uses national police. So that's the chemical warfare side, and so the defunding the police is tied to that. The second thing is biological warfare. We were just before we jumped onto the recording here, we were talking about the loss of friends, right, through biological warfare, through this the ad of COVID and vaccinations. I mean, what you just said, Patrick, is so right. It's like eliminate all these things in your life that are going to destroy you, that you have control over right now, like whether or not you're going to spray some type of chemical on the weeds on your back lawn instead of getting down on your or things like vaccinations, right? I mean, I think Bobby Kennedy in his book, and I've gotten to know him, he's got a terrific book out about Fauci, right? And I mean, he talks about we're looking at children by the time they think they get to like the age of 12 or 13 have had like vaccinations. I mean, I'm not anti-medicine. And certainly Boone and I, serving in the military, we were pincushions going overseas all the time. But at a certain point in time, you start to say, okay, with the, I have people in my family who are autistic, and we don't have any autism in our family's history. And all we can, and my sister-in-law, who has really taken a hard look at it, she ties it back to these vaccinations. And when you start to study the vaccinations, so that's the biological war that we are in. And the problem with kinds of things, chemical, biological, and the idea of influencing against the narrative of we've got to try to protect ourselves, is that we're being told that all this stuff is okay. And we've been at this for decades now, that, it's okay. These things are safe. They're sound, as we heard so much in the last couple of years. I mean, what we are in such a war of narratives, and people have to wake up. And when I say wake up, I mean not just like go and say, oh yeah, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. Wake up means go do something. Go do something. I use the phrase, and it's part of my narrative is local action equals a national impact. Meaning, get involved, stand up, step up, speak up. No more complaining. Get off the damn couch. and get out there and take what we talk about in this little manual, designed it like a little military manual for people to, it's very, very easy to read. It's a citizen's guide, like typical military guys. We try to operate at the sort of, from a readability perspective at the lowest common denominator. Doesn't mean that we're demeaning the people that read it or they read it. But what we're trying to do is be as simple as possible in defining what it is that we are in. Because trust me, guys, and your audience, we are in a war right now. And that war is a 5th generation war where we are about to find ourselves, looking around going, Jesus, what the hell happened to America? Without a shot being fired.
And in your manual, you've got an envelope, an umbrella covering, the names of Soros. You've got Gates, you've got Zuckerberg and others. And we have to, I don't look at things as nation states almost anymore. These giant corporations, these multinational corporations, big tech, big pharma, have so much power and so much money. At what point do the people who sit on the boards of directors of pharmaceutical companies, the CEOs like Borla of Pfizer, and all of these people who've suppressed the information in big tech, at what point do we recognize them as enemy combatants and start arresting these people and putting them in trials and putting them away, because they're obviously enemies?
So let me comment, and then Boone, I'll throw it to you too. So here's where we're at, and here's what I want people to go and do to study this and to take a look at this, and then pay attention to when they meet this coming month in January. Go Economic Forum, okay? Go look at the World Economic Forum, look at their board of directors and their board of advisors, and what you just said, Patrick, is exactly right. All of these people are this sort of cabal of globalist elitists, and they're going to meet, I think it's on the 15th or 16th of January, for a week in Davos, Switzerland. And this is the World Economic Forum, and it's led by, in fact, organized and founded by Klaus Schwab, who talks about his 4th industrial revolution. It's not a 4th industrial revolution; it's the 4th Reich. And the Nazis may have lost or two, but they seem to be back in control of this new world order, and led by a person in the name of Klaus Schwab. So he and all of them will show up to I call it the sort of the beauty queen stage. So all of these globalists that you're talking about, and others, and many others. BlackRock is another. These are big organizations, and who are we sitting here? Boone sitting out in the boondocks of Middle America, and here I am sitting down in Florida. Who the hell are we to talk smack about these people that are not millionaires? Some of them are trillionaires, and so the money that they have, they could crush us like an ant, right? But we have to, as Americans, we have to stand up, and we've got to recognize that this is very real. And I'm not telling people to listen. Don't listen to Mike Flynn. Go pay attention to the World Economic Forum meeting, and they just published their itinerary. Go listen to some of the panels. Listen to some of the speakers. These are the people that absolutely believe in something called a new world order. And like Klaus Schwab says, you're going to be you're going to own nothing, and you're going to be happy. And he's talking about that time frame being roughly between now and 2030. And so we're looking at some very interesting things that are going to happen in 2023. The idea of what we want people to come to grips with is that people they've got to be ready, and they've got to understand what it is that we are facing, and then they have to decide in their own little worlds, what things they can control. And because most Americans can't control what the hell the World Economic Forum does or what this new world does. They can certainly understand it. And then what they can do is they can make decisions about stuff in their own hometowns, and getting involved in school boards, and getting involved in, running on these committees, organized community groups. This is how this country was formed. It was formed from the bottom up, and that's how we're going to save it.
Yeah, I would. I completely agree with all that. And to tie into it, we have a problem in this country, and I think we have a problem around the world, and it's called distraction. We have distraction-itis. It's going in. We're talking about something very real here right now about the World Economic Forum. We're talking about the people that are involved. We discuss these human networks, these intelligent, they kind of keep the whole thing together and keep them on the outside of being held accountable. This whole cabal, the entire thing keeps them from being held accountable. And we should be focusing on these things. How do we make these people accountable at our local level and them out? Meanwhile, we have this distractionitis going on where people, I'll see them on social media constantly talking about the Masons or some Ashkenazi Jew, and they're talking about this stuff that literally has gone on a long, long time ago, and it's very, very distracting. Whisper campaigns or rumor campaigns that they listen to, they pay attention to, but they're really not doing anything. They're so distracted by everything that is literally, it could not be further from what's actually happening right now in the moment. And it gets them bogged down. It gets them completely task saturated in their own awareness that they do nothing. And that's what the guide is all about. It's like, say, hey guys, let's get focused. Let's get focused. This is our 30-meter target. This is right here is the 30-meter target. And we got to start hitting that target really quick because it's right on us. So let's get focused about it. And I don't think we're going to be able to get that focus until we, like General Flynn said, we have to identify the people and the organism and the structure in which this organism is functioning and get in its craw, get in the way, start creating problems and distractions and disruptions for them rather than constantly being distracted for ourselves.
And that's something I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to say, because I think that what Boone just said is so vitally important. I mean, this omnibus bill, $1.7 trillion omnibus bill. I mean, to my count right now, we have given Ukraine $100 billion in like less than a year, $110 billion. And we can't even protect our own border. I mean, we're not even protecting our own border. So the distraction, a massive, massive distraction, and the media, they cover it like they still are beating up, Russia, right? And Ukraine good. We just had a guy in a sweatsuit speak in front of the House of basically give a state of his nation's address. I mean, how pathetic. And so we're being distracted by something that we have no business being. And talk about biolabs, Patrick. Oh my God, there's so many biolabs in Ukraine. Yeah. When I talk about like Ukraine, and here I am talking about it, but I don't want people to be distracted by it because our problems are right here at home. The biggest problems and that's why I talk about America First and all this stuff. America First is not a bumper sticker. America First is a government. If I don't take care of my home, and I'm literally now talking about my home. If I don't take care of my home, if I don't cut the grass, if I don't trim the hedges, if I don't take care of everything around my own place to look like crap, right? Well, that's, you take that metaphor to a larger issue of the United States of America. If we don't take care of our home here in the United States of America, we're gonna basically decay, and we're not going to be the United States of America anymore. And this administration, this war that we're in, distractions, and they love these distractions, and they continue to pour money into them without giving our own, local law enforcement and our own border patrol professionals and our own immigrations and customs people the ability to be able to do the jobs that they're very capable of doing, because that $1.7 trillion omnibus bill actually takes away money from CBP to be able to do border security, and instead we give I think it's 5 or 6 countries that we gave tens of millions of dollars to secure their borders.
Yeah.
I mean, we are
insane.
nuts. Yeah, we're nuts in it to allow it. So, I don't want people to be distracted. I want people to focus. And it's like I say, my platform, Boone's platform, your platform is a little bit, we all have our own platforms that we can operate from, national, international, local, so I'm going to use my platform to the best that I can be able to get this message out about the war that we're in, the adversaries that we face, that we've already talked about, and then what we need to do about it. But I want everybody to start to understand and start to take control of their own personal lives. And what is it that they can do instead of just whining and complaining about, oh, woe is me, and be acted. No, focus on what you can do and get out there and do it.
Yeah, and that's what this show is about, General, is we decided that for years, we're telling people what was coming, and then we switched over to solutions, and that's why you're here. And, for me, and I try to get the word out, and I'd love for you guys to share this message as, the modification that's going on across this nation. And all I had to do was call a state senator who's a friend over in one state, and then talk to some other state senators here in my state, and say, you need to Google weather modification companies, weather modification legislation, and what is being sprayed, the aluminums and other harmful substances that are being sprayed to block the sunlight. We need the sunlight to grow food. We need the sunlight to create vitamin D for our immune systems in our own body. But the aluminums and other things that are being aerosol sprayed are very harmful to the soil, very harmful to crops, very harmful to animals in our respiratory system. So they're actually penning legislation to ban weather modification in my state and in neighboring states. And that's something that I think is a torpedo, at least, to get the word out that, hey, these people do not mean good, they're good, not good intentions when they talk about climate and the things that they're doing.
Well, why don't you jump in?
Yeah. What the most amazing thing about what you just said is that people are doing something. And that's the thing. They're acknowledging it. You're telling people, hey, go educate yourself on X, Y, and Z. I'm not here to push you over the edge and tell you, beat you over the head about something. I'm telling you, go educate yourself and then take what you just said, that they are taking action. This is happening. And I don't think any of us are, I think there's quite a bit of debate about the whole global warming thing. I think that's a reasonable debate to be had, but I don't think anybody's against pollution. I think we all kind of go, pollution is a bad thing. We probably shouldn't do that. And especially when you're blocking out the sun and you're screwing up people's crops and everything else, which is, I think, that's another form of disruption. You whenever you create stresses on a populace and all these other things, you're creating these disruption patterns that really do affect the psyche of a country. And I can see a lot of people are distressed over the current weather situation across our country. And it's like, hey, people are freezing to death in their vehicles in Buffalo and, across the Midwest and everywhere else. It's just insane right now. It's a lot of disruption, man. I think there's contamination in the physical sense in our world. And I think there's a lot of mental contamination that comes from the same.
And we're seeing the process, General. If you want to talk about the transition, from capitalism into socialism, into communism, the goals, things like that they're the political ends that these folks are after.
So first of all, there is an old book, and it's called Rise of Communism, and it's about the Bolshevik Revolution in the 1920s. It's a fascinating book. It's a very, very easy book to read. And I read it probably a couple of times now, but anyway, where we are is people have to keep in mind that there have been competing ideologies for a long, long time. I mean, capitalism is a foundation of our system of government, right? I mean, we're a republic, we're a democracy where we elect our representatives and then they represent us. And what we have learned, right? What we now see is this thing we call the uniparty. We talk about the uniparty in here quite a bit. I think that people need to understand that the majority of the world, when you think about India or China or Russia, some of these large nations, the Islamic world, I mean, the majority of the people on the planet don't live in a society like we live in. In fact, majority of people live under dictatorships or live under the umbrella of or socialism. And we now know we've had in our own government, we have card-carrying socialists in our government, particularly in our federal government. Also, I want people to understand the infiltration for many, many decades of these people with certain ideology. Don't believe in America as we just take for granted. they have been infiltrating into our government and into our systems, the sort of the levers of power for a long, long time. This didn't happen because, Donald Trump showed up in 2016. This for decades. You can't get what you just talked about, Patrick. You can't get to that level without having planned for it, prepared for it, designed the systems to do modification and such. One of the things that I want people to understand is that the United States of America is very, very rich in resources, in natural resources. Principal natural resources on the planet are food, water, and energy. And actually, we have sufficient resources on here on our soil and in our contiguous waters that could take care of, frankly, the rest of the planet for a long, long time. Because we're still so creative as Americans, but we're not being allowed to do what it is that we should be able to do, because everything has been exported out, right? Everything has been into these ideologies because it's frankly cheap. Back to your discussion about the sort of the corporate world, Patrick, and who's actually in charge, right? We've got statements out of some of these corporate leaders that basically tout China over the United States of America.
Right.
I mean, and they are about, and you watch, again, back to the World Economic Forum, back to their upcoming meeting, you look, they're going to tout China. They're going to be speaking about how China is the new model for the future. And we've already seen some of this coming out of our own administration. So, one of the things, I don't want to read this just briefly, because we talk about managing your mind. This is chapter 9. It's the great part of it. The way to utilize toughness, and this is something that Boone has really reemphasized to me a lot. The way to utilize mental toughness in fifth generation warfare is for all of us fearlessly to manage our own psychological susceptibilities that make us vulnerable to unseen manipulation. And what's happening a lot is that, and Boone, he nailed it. All of these distractions, these are unseen manipulative operations against those of us that are being targeted, and we don't even know it. So if you realize it and you know it, then you can at least understand what's happening, and you can say, well, look, that's not a priority. That's not my priority. My priority right now is right here, right, doing X, Y, and Z, instead of going, oh, woe is me, like even the damn omnibus bill, right? I mean, 1.7 trillion. I think we had at least 13, 14, maybe 16 Republican senators sign off on that damn thing, right? That is the likelihood of that being another nail in the economic coffin of the United States of America is very, very real. And so what we've got to do is we've got to understand all this. We've got to take it all in, and then we've got to really move forward. And you move forward together in communities. That's why during the early stages of COVID, what was one of the things that they did? Close churches, close down all churches. You can't have any churches open, but Walmart can stay open. I mean, all the big corporations can stay open. The liquor stores could stay open, but churches had to close. Why? Because it's a place where people come to communicate and act as a community. And in churches, you can actually decide what to do there as a group, and particularly as an organized group, and you can go do it in your own communities. And that's why I'm very adamant about the religious leaders, and really have to wake up, because the country is still at its foundation and at its roots a Judeo-Christian nation, and those are the principles and values that we were built upon, and we should be fearless about that. But people need to understand how we're being manipulated, and that's one of the things that I have to teach and bring out, and then we talk about some of the solutions.
Well, we only have a few minutes left here, sir, and I appreciate you guys. Going back to what you guys are talking about, this has been going on for decades. Pat and I have talked about Yuri Bezmenov talking about ideological subversion and the level of infiltration that happens over decades. This goes back we know the Roosevelt administration, Franklin Roosevelt had, spies and communists in his administration. So this again has been going on for a long time. And I also say you can never fix the problem unless you recognize that there is a problem. So your solution is almost erroneous unless you recognize the depth of the problem. Before I let you go, I really wanted to ask you about this going back to China. When I was a young man, my college professor talked about the Spratly Islands. This is in the 90s during the Balkan War. And I looked it up. Nothing was really going on with the Spratly Islands. But when I look now, the South China Sea, China's building all these artificial bases, the growth and expansion of their One Belt, One Road policy, which is a road and rails system throughout Eurasia, the string of pearls going around the South China Sea into the Indian Ocean, stretching to Sri Lanka, Africa. The growth of China, we're all watching it happen. Just a question. Do you think it's possible that we get into a kinetic war? People were talking about we might go to war with Russia, nuclear war. I don't think that's possible anymore because all of our countries are so economically interdependent. What, in your opinion, what is America's role in the next 10, 20 years as China grows with the One Belt Road, One Road policy? They're taking over Africa with these minerals and things like that. What's the next move for the next 10, 20 years as China grows the way it is?
Yeah, so I'll just answer quickly. So do not discount physical war ever. As soon as you discount physical war, you're making a huge mistake. And I don't want your audience to think that physical war is no longer. I mean, we just spent 20 years, the first 2 decades of this century, in a very, very physical war in the Middle East and Central Asia, and we lost. We lost. I mean, we actually surrendered in Central Asia, in Afghanistan. So, and we left American citizens behind. So that's the first 2 decades of this century. Discount physical war. Don't discount the idea that the bully on the block suddenly feels encumbered and strong, and in that sort of strategic landscape that you just painted for the audience, from the Spratly Islands to the Kurils up north to the Belt Road Initiative going out all the way to West Africa and Western Europe by the Chinese. So in order to do that, in order to have that kind of domination or dominance over the planet, they also have to be prepared to physically take things. So don't discount that. I do believe war, and I've written in other books I've written, that war is the norm, peace is the aberration in human history. I mean, and again, and the example that the recent example I'll tell you is that the United States of America was just at war for more than 20 years at war. We don't want to, we don't about it, but that's what we were. We weren't in peace. We weren't most people sit around because it's like, well, the military will take care of that. But actually we were at war as a nation in Afghanistan and in primarily in Iraq, but actually in many other places on the planet for 20 years. And that war continues a brush fire now. And now we're looking at the potential for nuclear war in Eastern Europe. I mean, so war is the norm. Peace is the aberration in human history.
Yeah, because I remember your predecessor, Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote that book, The Grand Chessboard. His first few pages, about the first chapter or whatever, he talked about the importance of Eurasia and protecting Eurasia from falling into the wrong hands. And we've kind of seen these wars being prosecuted over, like you said, over the last 20 plus years in Eurasia. And it seemed like China is almost kind of going to be the spoiler of the party, because it seems like it is taking over Eurasia and the South China Sea and things like ASEAN, creating these trade organizations with things like ASEAN and Saudi Arabia. So I'm just curious what the next 10, 20 years looks like. And it seems like I don't know. I thought through economic interdependence, war was less likely and enter asymmetrical kind of warfare, because just like you said in the beginning, you're trying to win hearts and minds as opposed to, the kind of war we're used to. So I was just kind of curious, because I've been studying and watching China for so long, and the growth has been exponential, and it seems like there's nothing stopping it right now anyway.
Well, why don't you jump on that?
Yeah, I think that there are things that we can't stop it in the United. I think the first thing we go into it, we talk about it several times. We have to get control of this uniparty within the United States, because that's who's creating, we talk about in the situation specifically about focusing on the political aspect. General Flynn was talking about Iraq. Okay, I served in Iraq, and I can tell you, as we were slugging it on the street with the Mahdi militia day in and day out, and my other friends are slugging it out with the Sunnis and the Wahhabis and everybody else, we're in the street fight, and we're constantly trying to rebuild the country, put up some sort of political system that everything's going to be great. Meanwhile, what happens is Iran just kind of strolls over, throws some money down, and gets a couple people elected, then gets a few more people elected. And before you know it, Iran literally takes up the political apparatus right away from us. And everything we were doing didn't mean for anything. The focus was on the political. And there's a lot of political warfare happening in the United States right now. These political representatives, all the way down from the presidency to what you have in your local county, are corrupted. They're so corrupted with this uniparty. And we want people to look that up and figure out what that uniparty is. The United States, in and of itself, if the people do not find a way to defund and oust this uniparty contingent, we cannot take back our own government, which is making decisions on our behalf in a geopolitical sense. So in order for the United States to conquer these things in which you were talking about, first 30-meter target is taking back our government right here, right now, with America First candidates. Now, that could be America First representatives on the right or on the left. It doesn't matter. We do a great job of defining what an America First representative is in the guide, not what people would typically think. So when we talk about how do we defeat China, well, the first thing we have to do is get control of ourselves. That's what we have to do.
We have just under a minute left, guys.
Yeah, so briefly, the Chinese are the masters and wrote a book on unrestricted warfare. And unrestricted warfare, if you read it, written in 1998, I met the authors of it actually in 1998 in the United States. They specifically talk about this idea of fifth generation warfare, and they're like the best at winning the war without firing a shot. And it's all about going after the mind and this war of the narrative. And so that's what we're trying to bring across with the Citizen's Guide. And we just hope that a lot of people grab hold of it and grab hold of the ideas and the tenets in it, and we start actually fighting back.
The book is called The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generational Warfare. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
The key is your neighbor is not your enemy. Americans need to unite right now and
exactly,
and get after your representatives in Washington, D.C. and call them and tell them to stop funding the.
Well, sorry for the abrupt end there. We only had so much time with the Lieutenant General and Boone conversation, man.
Yeah, it was an amazing conversation. And what it does more than anything else, Jeff, in my mind, is it solidifies what we've been saying for so many years while people were calling us, tinfoil hat wearers and everything else, the things that we were observing and telling people that was happening and coming. And, again, the silent weapons for silent wars that were going on, the cyber attacks, the financial issues, the chemical, the biological, the psychological, right? All of it is being employed on us now. And again, to have a retired general and Boone Cutler, who are intelligence experts, psychological warfare experts, confirm exactly what's going on, is a bit of vindication actually for us.
I mean, our thing has never been necessarily victory laps. Like, what we talked about in the conversation, it's about solution. Possible to reach a solution unless you recognize there's the problem in the first place. And that's the beauty about nonlinear, asymmetrical, fifth generational warfare, even like social engineering. It's most effective when you don't realize it's happening. And that's the nature of it. Like you said, with silent weapons and silent wars, it's like, it's hard to your enemy or that you're being attacked if you don't see it like a normal kinetic. If you punch me in the face, I know you're attacking me. But like we talked about, the tainting of our food, our air, our water, our soil, propaganda. I mean, you name it. It's happening. It's firing on so many cylinders, and people are just freaking oblivious.
Well, and people not only are oblivious, but some go so far as to attack the ones who do recognize it and who do try to warn their fellow citizens, right?
Without a doubt. And that belies their own personal kind of insecurity. And, again, no one wants to be lied to. No, they're not running game on me, because then it begins a question of like, oh man, game is being run on me. What all else have I been lied to about? And when you start going down that rabbit hole, then belies the larger question. Now, what do I do about it? Most people just want to stay lazy and do nothing. So it's easier for them to deflect and call you XYZ instead of actually, biting the bullet and realize, no, it's it's happening and you've been lied to. You've been deceived. Take an L. Take the L. It's okay. Because it could save your life. And your family's life.
I'm not even looking for apologies from anybody for the way that I've been treated, nor I'm just asking for them to get on board to at least, stand up for their children's future, right?
Right. Yeah.
No apology needed. I'm not looking for apologies. I'm looking for some help from my fellow citizens. That's it.
Well, and that's true, man. Because like he said, we're not necessarily going to be able to control what goes down at Davos. We're not going to be able to control what happens in the world, but we will be able to control how we react to it. And we said many times, man, think globally, act locally, organize locally. Your school board, your sheriffs, your counties, your communities. That's where the real change is going to happen, man. We can't necessarily stop what they're doing globally, even though it would be great to put an end to so much of the crap they're doing, but we need to take command of our communities, like Boone was saying and like the general was saying, and it really is incumbent upon us as individuals of our community to stand up, fight back, push back, and just not participate in the freaking reindeer games that we know is going on, that some of us know is going on. Some won't ever realize reindeer games are going on, and they'll just keep doubling down on their own. When I say ignorance, it just means uninformed. They're uninformed, so they're just going to double down, keep up with the Kardashians, buy the latest iPhone, et cetera, while the madness continues to go on around them. So, yeah, that was cool, man. I need to get that book because I've always been fascinated by this.
Yeah, I've obviously been reading it, and the thing is, humans are very adaptable creatures, and that slow creep of communism, before you know it, you're going to say beans and rice for dinner, and then it's going to be, well, running low on beans, and crickets are on sale at the store here pretty soon. That's what these people have in store for us if we allow them to do it, right? So
or whatever, into your dog's name's looking pretty good. The belly's starting to growl, and we got the grilling some turkey, and our pooch looking awfully juicy.
It's a fact. It's
not unheard of.
But it's a fact. It happened in Venezuela. People started eating their pets, and that's what this, God forbid we get to that. But anyway, Jeff, you have a good day. That was an amazing interview. I love having Boone back on and having General Michael Flynn on. That was enlightening. And again, like I said, affirmation that everything we've been saying for years is correct.
Yeah, so everyone go out and check that book out, man. Fifth Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generational Warfare. Pat's been into it. I've just kind of did some highlight. It's very fascinating because it's one of those things, man. It's getting the acknowledgement of realizing that the level of the game that has been run on you that is so freaking sophisticated for so long. When I mentioned ideological subversion, I mean, this has been like even the general said, this has been for decades, man. The slow roll into this. It doesn't happen overnight. They've mastered, behavioral science and psychological operations to the point where, we're that boiling frog. We don't realize it's happening. So I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Patrick, good to see you again, brother. As always, Happy New Year to everyone. Enjoy. I hope 2022. I sure the hell didn't. Not even gonna lie. I'm hoping 2023 is a little bit rosier than 2022 has been. But we're blessed, man. We're blessed beyond belief, and we have way more than we don't have. So much love to you guys. Love to you, champ. And we'll see you guys next time.